Hello everyone, I am Abby Fernandez.
And I am Jill Peck.
And today we're going to be talking about Chapter 7, which is Mediation in the Meeting of the Waters by Fritz Kling. So to start off, I want to talk about how Kling emphasizes the sway in homogenizing of monoculture, and from this spurs the fear of loss and identity and self-determinism. Globalization introduces a vortex of bewildering economic and cultural change that can spark exclusivity or fundamentalist reactions. There are several different types of mediation that we're going to start off talking about, and all of those are important to a global community that is united and adverse in each other's issues or religions and everything in between. So first off is political mediation, which is obviously involving websites, blogs, or cable channels around the world. As mentioned in the book, the United States has many permanent debates over current issues. These rifts are often long and drawn out, and both sides are unwilling to validate any point made by the opposition. Many of these rifts involve gay marriage or abortion or hot topic issues that don't necessarily get a resolution, but are still talked about anyway. And what people don't realize is that oftentimes in many other cultures or nations, there is a constant battle between conservative or liberal beliefs. The next mediation is philosophical mediation, and this has to do with the beliefs of a person or how they think of the world in a broader spectrum. In this age, Americans are more likely to believe that there is not a creator and that they are also uncertain about this topic. From a poll taken back in 1955 to now, it's gone up 9% believe that there isn't a God and 12% are uncertain that there is a God. So in order to mediate this, we basically need to educate people about, not necessarily religion, but a relationship with Jesus Christ and what that involves, and how he desires a relationship with each and every person that he's created. Social mediation is the only way that we'll be able to deal with increasing diversity of all types and all people. Intermixing will not lead to tolerance, but mediation will. In social mediation, Kling discusses a sociologist by the name of Robert Putnam, and in this he concludes that the more we are brought into physical proximity with other people of races or ethnic backgrounds, the more we stick to our own and the less we trust each other. So basically what he's saying is that the more we are forced to accept other cultures or accept other ways of life, the less likely we're going to do that, and the more likely we're going to stick to our own roots and our own ways of doing things rather than accept everyone else and how they do things. Ethnic mediation is super important, especially to churches, because they can aid in this type of mediation by diffusing hatred among alienated groups around the world. And often these groups are from places like Tibet, Baghdad, or Rwanda and Sudan. Examples of alienated groups can be nationalists, extremists, or merely ethnic groups. Oftentimes these people have distorted views on what has gone wrong in their life, and to compensate, they take an extreme measure to make these situations better. So mediation through this outlet can help people understand that maybe their situation has been looked at through a wrong lens, and they can source their anger or their fear or anything into a different outlet rather than taking an extreme measure to make things better. International mediation explains that there are so many diverse opinions throughout the world, and they're all available on the internet. So readers can take their own opinions and look something up on the internet that's going to fuel their bias, and that's how they're going to look at information that goes on throughout the world. So people are able to have a very small window of how they view things. And this just diminishes the scope of the person's ability to look at a situation with an unbiased view and look at it through a true lens rather than on one side. So helping mediate through this can help people realize that there are other sides to a story, there are other ways of looking at things, and not just how they have always known it to be. The next is mission mediation. It's our duty to mend Christian division among certain areas of the world, especially where the words Christian and missions is not necessarily accepted. Evangelization has often tried to dominate areas, and that is why people in certain regions are more likely to not accept the words or accept that you're a Christian or that you are here on a mission. They often shy away from that because they've had people in their past who don't treat them as nicely, or they try to force religion down their throat, and therefore they're just closed off and they don't want to talk to you about it. Kling mentions a story about a Buddhist monk who was interested in a relationship with Jesus, but he was also telling the person that if he had heard the word Christianity or missions, that he would have been totally closed off to the idea of Christianity. So at that point, we just need to make amends between those two words and make sure that they have a different connotation in different parts of the world. Next is class mediation. With this mediation, there comes a rift between the white collar and the blue collar. It is believed that education would close the gap between these two parties, but in fact, it's only made it greater. People who have education often become wealthy or live in higher class areas, only making the cultural differences more extreme and more pronounced. People think that communications technology will improve the greater good for all of the community, but in fact, it leads to less understanding and less cooperation, and it has brought a lot of such separation. People tend to act aggressively when their perceived slights into their cultural dignities are being attacked. So instead, we need to close that gap of communication technology to where it does aid in cooperation and it does aid in understanding. Economic mediation is fueled by globalization and has produced tons of wealth for many people, but it has also made the poor more poor as well. Globalization has the ability to create wealth in many parts of the world, but it also creates less wealth in other parts of the world. So it's just different based on which part you're looking at. And Nelson Mandela also said that globalization doesn't benefit men, women, and children who are stricken by poverty and violence. It only escalates that. So oftentimes, that's why you see so much separation within those two, the rich and the poor, because globalization obviously benefits the very wealthy and the powerful, but leaves the poor behind in a sense. Lastly, we're going to talk about religious mediation, which is one of the most important things in this list of mediation topics. We must continue as Christians to pursue religious mediation, no matter what our inner self says in regarding to other religions, whether that be Buddhists or Islamists or anybody of any other religion. One example is in recent events, obviously the Paris bombings. People assume that the terrorists, and they may be Islam, but most oftentimes the whole group of people are not terrorists. Not all Islamists are terrorists. So a generalization like that can really hurt the community, any community, and create biases of maybe Islams that are in your own community. So we just need to look at a broader spectrum and see that generalizations most of the time aren't always correct. There's always a small percentage that actually fit in that category. So after that, we're going to have Jill talk about the East-West Institute.
So essentially, the East-West Institute's purpose is mediation. East-West Institute is an international organization that addresses dangerous fault lines that threatens peace and security. In 2006, East-West in 2006, East-West Institute created opportunities for the U.S. And China to work together and build a trusted relationship with each other and a more faster way of communication. East-West Institute was founded in 1980 and has been independent and a nonprofit since day one. Some locations where East-West Institute is located is New York City, Moscow, Washington, and Brussels. A quote that I found from their EWI's website was that says that we forge new connections and build trust among global leaders and influencers. We help create practical new ideas and take action through our network of global decision makers. Essentially, EWI provides leadership and mobilization resources to address some of the most critical issues facing the world. It brings together three different parts: key leaders, policymakers, and groundbreaking innovators to develop new solutions to today's daunting challenges that we face today. EWI's mission is essentially to make the world a safer place in a measurable way. EWI will step in and take action when conflicts threaten global security and stability. Essentially that means is whenever there's two different countries that may have an issue with each other, one country is threatening the other, EWI's purpose is to go in between them and be a kind of a communication way, so you can lessen the likeliness of something going wrong, for somebody to get hurt, is what EWI will step in and take over. EWI also partners with governments, businesses, and media around the globe. The mission of EWI is made up of about 50 full-time staff and is supported by a large global network group consisting of men and women from around the world. Some supporters of EWI include a diverse group of individuals, foundations, and corporations. EWI works with experts and authorities from around the world, partnering with governments, businesses, and media, and a broad range of think tanks and academic institutions in both East and West by leveraging the expertise and networks. Issues that EWI has mediated have been conflict prevention, armed reduction, cyberspace, global economies, and terrorism and crime. EWI will step in and take action when conflicts threaten global security and stability. Some places that EWI has gone in and mediated for has been Middle East and North Africa. They have mediated in Southwest, Central, South, and East Asia, Europe, China, and Russia. What we have learned and taken away from this chapter is that mediation, in order for our global community to work well, is for mediation. We wouldn't be able to communicate well, we wouldn't be able to communicate like we are today if we didn't have any type of company like East-West Institute that'll go in and kind of build a chain wave so we're able to communicate with countries that may be hostile towards us or that may be threatening us. Cut. I'm not exactly sure if the part where I kind of stopped talking and
No, that's okay. I don't know if you could hear it.
That's because I just started reading it and then I kind of picked up. I kind of paused at the end of the sentence